Hi everybody, Wild and Woolly in the garden. I don't know how the koalas can hang on, frankly. Pete, have you got any news on the...
Yes, it's doing well. It's
okay.
It's okay. So far, so good.
Yeah, well, it had an infection, and they're going to have a good look at it. You told me they were going to put it under, and they were going. I'm sure it'll be okay. But when you walk around the garden sometimes and you see the trees waving, can't imagine how poor little koalas hang on up there. Sometimes mum with one or two on. No, not two. I've never seen a koala with two on her back. But anyway, they are amazing creatures. Before we get into the stuff of the day, let me wish the Royal Flying Doctor Service happy birthday. 75 years. I think they're taking a whole week of celebration. God bless them for doing it. The celebration and all the service that they give. The original idea was, of course, by the Reverend John Flynn, who's a legend. The Queen, I understand, from what I read, personally gave the Royal to the Royal Flying Doctor Service in 1954, when she was in Australia on a visit. But happy birthday to the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Great idea, innovative, clever, unique in the world. June 1. Oh, happy first of the month. International Cheese Treaty Day, whatever the hell that is. 1951. Cheese Treaty. And that's my telephone, so if you'll excuse me for a second, I'm just going to turn this off because you know what's going to happen. It will ring as soon as we're talking. They do intrude, but they are wonderful things. Technology, modern telephones and so forth. Homing pigeons complete 11,000 kilometre trip from Namibia to London. 55 days it took them in 1845. Homing pigeons. They didn't have smartphones, but they knew where the hell they were going. They didn't need NatSab. They knew. Homing device. Marilyn Monroe, the American actress, some like it hot, born Los Angeles, California, died in '62 under, well, suspicious circumstances. But she was born this day in 1926. Leslie Howard, the British actor, gone with the wind of human bondage. He dies when the Nazis shoot his plane out of the sky. He was travelling, I think it was from London to Lisbon. And a little bit like the Americans tracked down Yamamoto, the designer and brain, if that's what it took, behind the Pearl Harbor events. The Americans tracked him down and they got him in the same way. Why I bring that up is that there's a story that says that Leslie Howard was somehow mistaken for Churchill, because the Germans were out to kill Churchill, if they possibly could, and somehow they confused, although there was a story about Leslie Howard being a MI5 or MI6 spy. I don't know how true that was, but they shot down the plane for no other reason. Presumably it was a civilian plane on a civilian commercial course, shot it down, and he happened to be on board. 1943. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz wed for the second time. Hey, I wonder how many people have done that, Pete?
A few.
Well, a few, yeah. Liz Taylor and Richard Burton, yeah.
Second time round's better, they say.
Well, I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. 1949, that was, when they got married for the second time. Australian Susie Maroney becomes the first person to swim from Mexico to Cuba across shark and jellyfish-infested waters of the Yucatan Straits. 123 miles in 38 hours, 33 minutes in a cage. Why? Anyway, we do remember her. 1996. Ronnie Woods, the English rock guitarist, faces Jeff Beck, Rolling Stones, born in 1947. In 1975, Ronnie Wood replaces Mick Taylor as the Rolling Stones guitarist. I've done 5 minutes, have I? Everyone wants to time you, I don't know. The first FM stereo broadcast is heard in 1961 in Australia. Jason Donovan. Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Neighbours and all the rest of it, Rocky Horror. 1968 he was born. Domestication of the first horse, or horses. Do you believe that? Horses were domesticated for the very first time 4000 BC, hypothetical only, 4000 BC approximately, the domestication of the horse in Europe, the European steppes near central Ukraine. Thomas Edison has granted his first patent for the electronic vote recorder. Golly, 1869. Patent number, if you want to check it up, patent number is 90646. Goody, goody, goody. Oh, and one more. General Motors files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's the 4th largest United States bankruptcy in history. That was in 2009. A few of those around, ladies and gentlemen, in the wind, I'm afraid. Bankruptcies, I mean. Not good. Where do we start? Maybe with inflation. Reserve Bank has come out with these figures. Well, not so much the Reserve Bank, they'll be looking at them closely, but the inflation figures, which will influence the Reserve Bank, 6.8% for April, that's over the last 12 months. That's up from 6.3%. So that is a surge. Cost of living is rising faster than expected. For all our protestations, the government has got to take responsibility to a degree because of their crazy energy policies, which have driven up electricity prices through the roof, which of course is reflected in everything we do, everywhere we go, everything we buy, everything we make. And the popular media, of course, doesn't say a word. Go figure. Money markets believe that the RBA will, however, leave interest rates on hold next month when they meet. Well, this month. You wouldn't want that job, would you? You have a government throwing fuel on the fire while the RBA tries to put it out. It's like pushing the up and down button in an elevator at the same time. You're not going to get anywhere, I'm sorry. These things are counterproductive and contradictory. And this may well be the canary in the coal mine, if we had coal mines anymore. Well, we do, but you know what I mean. I'm just trying to be clever. The canary in the coal mine, the trouble I'm talking about with the construction industry. Hard to imagine. 1,700 bankruptcies so far in this financial year. Now, that is just from last July. An unbelievable 5 businesses a day going under. Through the hoop. Yet the government is still enjoying a honeymoon. Either that or the media can't join the dots. I don't get it. Speaking of the government, I saw this the other day. 54,000 consultants. 54,000 consultants are employed at any one time by the federal government. Now think about it. We are paying 54,000 extra people to do the work of the public service, who are generously paid to do the work in the first place. Now this is scandalous. Again, where is the media? Where are the commentators? This, if you look at it, is equivalent to about 40% of the size of the public service. The swamp that is Canberra, to borrow a Trumpism, needs to be drained. And that would be good for climate change as well. Swamps and wetlands contribute 50% of global greenhouse gases. So we can drain the swamp, and we're saving a lot of money at the same time, helping the climate too. I would go so far as to say at any one time, half the money that the government raises each year through taxation and levies and all the rest is wasted. I reckon that's right. Half. I think it's scandalous. But again, where is the observant, call them to account media? Nowhere to be seen. A big meeting in Paris, some 175 countries, I believe, all talking about the problem of plastic. Plastic. We've been talking about plastic waste for decades. It can be so difficult, can it, to just unilaterally ban single-use, mostly packaging, containers, etc. Ban those things completely. From the 1950s through to today, we have produced and failed to dispose of 8 billion tonnes of plastic waste. Now that's enough to cover half of Europe. To put it in a visual context, you'll find the stuff in the oceans, at the tops of mountains. You'll find it in the air that we breathe. A much bigger issue than climate. But they're all linked in a way. But nobody does anything. Why? Well, maybe getting rid of plastics isn't sexy. Fixing the imaginary climate change crisis is, apparently. It'll cost a lot more to do that than just getting rid of plastic. And hey, how about this for an idea? Why don't we go back to the time when we got on just fine without it? You know, don't have to go back too far. I don't remember in the 50s and 60s that we were particularly deprived because we didn't have everything wrapped in plastic. Time to do something. There's another job for the media. Here's one that'll confuse you maybe. Certainly confuses me. More and more children, and girls in particular, are being diagnosed as being autistic. Girls later than boys. I don't know why that is, but it apparently is statistically true. But why? When this problem, a little bit like, I think, a little bit like repetition strain injury. You remember repetition strain injury? RSI, they used to call it. Everybody had it. Everybody. And dozens of other things that were never heard of before. It sort of becomes a fashion, an epidemic almost. Have you got any thoughts on why suddenly children are being diagnosed in these kind of numbers as autistic? When, in my day, when I was growing up, they would have just been naughty kids. They'd had their bottom smacked and they'd have been told to go to bed. Were we ignorant? Were we in the Dark Ages? Were we? Or is this some giant con? Some sort of Stockholm syndrome? I don't know. Look, if you've got any thoughts on that, get in touch. Leave a comment. I'd like to hear what you have to say about an epidemic of autism. They have unveiled the plans for the new Women's and Children's Hospital. You might have heard here in Adelaide. $3.2 billion. Now that is about $1.1 billion more than the Royal Adelaide Hospital, which was the most expensive hospital in the world and the second most expensive building in the world, and clearly doesn't meet our needs, isn't fit for purpose. There are lots of older hospitals, and by that I mean the Women's and Children's and the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Lots and lots of hospitals far, far older. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe we just like building things and having nice, shiny, new stuff. But those old buildings, they continue to do their job. Look at some of the great hospitals in London, for example. Some built in the 1700s. Great Ormond Street Hospital, St Mary's. Now, I don't think it's age, I think it's design. What will they do with the old hospital, by the way? The old Women's and Children's? I'll tell you, the site is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. They're going to bulldoze it, I would reckon, and build apartments. If this thing does go through, that building should be kept as a hospital. We need another hospital. Now, okay, you're going to say, well, what's it going to cost to run that as well? Well, what's it going to cost to have ambulances ramped and people dying in the back of ambulances while they wait to be admitted? It's all so stupid. And when you think of the money and the time we people of Adelaide put into the old Women's and Children's Hospital, or the current Women's and Children's Hospital in North Adelaide, countless Good Friday appeals, hundreds of volunteers who would go around shaking a tin, collecting money. I know from my days in the Variety Club how many things that we did and we bought for the Women's and Children's Hospital. Fundraising of every kind. All that should not be scrapped just for the sake of having something shiny and new. The Prime Minister, I'll just leave you with this, the Prime Minister in Adelaide, he commented that for so long Aboriginal people have been kept at the margin. Kept at the margin. He talked about disadvantage. I don't understand you, Prime Minister. Maybe there is corruption and mismanagement and money that never gets to these people, which results in their disadvantage. But that's a bureaucratic problem which surely you should be able to recognise and fix, along with, maybe, domestic violence, wasted lives. I can see an abundance of blessings, of opportunity that Aboriginal people have, and a total rejection by a lot of Aboriginal people of that advantage. They don't want it. Right. They don't have to want it. I understand that. Opportunities shouldn't be imposed upon people. Somebody else's idea of success and good fortune and prosperity clearly might not be somebody else's idea. We're all entitled to choose our path in life. There are more than 1,300, think about this, 1,300 Aboriginal organisations in Australia, receiving, on average, $1 million a day public money, taxpayer money. I have no idea what happens to the money. So clearly, money is not the problem. I would suggest to you that this is part of the problem. Aboriginals haven't done too badly. 51.2%, I think it is, to date, although I might check that up because it grows from time to time. But 51.2% of the landmass of Australia is owned by or Aboriginals have title to. That is half, more than half the country. They have money. Maybe the Aboriginal industry has the money and the people don't. That's a lot of money that goes out. $36 billion a year? $36 billion? If you work it out, it's about $1,200 a week for every man, woman and Aboriginal child, which is significantly more than most white families would have. And all this largesse is based on racism, really, because Aboriginals have a different kind of deal to white Australia. It's based on nothing more than the colour of their skin, and it's certainly generous, but it all should be, black and white, based on nothing more than need, not race. Don't go down this race path, which is, of course, where the voice will take us. I sense you might be very sick of this thing about the voice, but I can't think of a thing that is more important to talk to you about in this sort of watershed moment of Australia's history. Thank you so much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. We will be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.